Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. One of my favorite aspects of hosting this podcast is the opportunity to meet new people and to also feature some of my closest and dearest friends in the world, as I truly believe that human connection is the most important medicine in very short supply in the world right now. And my hope is that by featuring these individuals that have supported me in my life, that you too can connect with them, allow them to bring more magic into your life, and to make yourself rich beyond all measure in the number one medicine necessary for a beautiful experience while being here on Earth, aka human connection. Today's guest in the show is a woman who I have known for the last 8 years or so, and who met me at a time where I had a lot of goals and a vision in life, but felt powerless to actually manifest the life I was envisioning. And she has been an immense source of inspiration for me in building my own business, taking the initiative to drop the victim mentality and become the victor of my life, and has been someone I can always rely on to be my friend and soul sister in this lifetime. In today's episode, I catch up with her, and she shares some very powerful recent psychedelic experiences she's gone through, including one with her mom, that truly touched me, as being able to connect with these medicines with our families is something not many of us have the opportunity to do. Yet so many of us yearn to be able to experience. So sit back, strap yourself in, and give me a big hand in welcoming my dear friend Leah Drew back onto the show. Leah Drew, one of my favorite humans in the entire world. It is so amazing to have you back on the show. It's been a while since you've been back on. And when you hit me up and you were like, I got some new stories to tell, I was like, well, please do tell. So it's amazing to have you here. How have you been? I've missed you so much.
I've been so good, Ryan. I always miss you. And yeah, super happy to be here. As I do, always dive deeper into my journey with psychedelics and plant medicines. Yeah, there's definitely been some lovely, interesting, intense, and beautiful experiences that I've gotten to have over the last, oh my God, the last time you and I recorded, I think I was one of your first people on the show.
Yeah, I think you were in the first 10 episodes. And I think that was the last time you were on, I'm pretty sure. And now we just released episode 170 today. So it's been a while. Well, it's amazing to have you back on because, we've been catching up from time to time through text and whatnot. And I've been hearing all the adventures you've been going on and working with ayahuasca and DMT. And I imagine many other medicines as well. And I'd love if I could if we could start out with just kind of whatever story comes to top of mind right now when it comes to psychedelic experiences that you've had within the last, let's say, year and a half. I know you were talking about a DMT one you recently had, but whatever one you want to open up with is perfect by me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I feel like what is super alive for me lately as I step deep into deeper levels of women's work. I'm a women's empowerment coach and support women in really helping them heal these deep feminine wounds that they have that prevent them from using their voice and speaking up and being in their bigness and embracing their mess and stepping forwards in their confidence, right? Honoring themselves in all of their worth. And as it happens, when you step into larger levels of your work, you're usually initiated to some extent, right? That's how it works. And yeah, so I actually, a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago, I opted into a mushroom and MDMA ceremony with my mother.
Wow.
And that was quite intense. It was a really beautiful experience. And again, very intense. I knew going into this journey that a lot was going to come up already. It was coming up around these feminine wounds, around these deep rooted things that I knew I'd done so much work around, and it was still there. Specifically, resentment was a really, really big and deep rooted emotion for me. And I've done so much work around it with my relationship with my mom. And I'm it's still here. And usually that's a sign for me that it is generational. And I also know, yes, it is generational. The mother-daughter relationship in generations past has held a lot of wounding, has had a lot of traumatic experiences surrounding it, and has ultimately held a lot of resentment, right, within that dynamic. And so, yeah, like opting in with my mother was already like a big deal. I'm super proud of my mom for saying yes and for opting in, first of all. I'm super proud of myself for doing the work for so many years to have been able to actually lead my mom to the place where she's like, yes, I'll do a plant medicine ceremony with you. Like, cool. And it's so beautiful because so many people are like, oh my God, I wish that my mother would do that with me. Like, wow.
That's me. I wish my mom would.
Yes. Yes. I would love for your mom to do a journey with you.
Straight up. It's exactly what she needs, but I can't tell her what she needs, of course, but from the outsider looking in, 100%. And, I'll just interject this real quick too. Like, what an amazing opportunity, that very few people get, and I'm always so peanut butter and jelly of people that get that opportunity because, like I was just saying, I know how much could be healed between generations when you are a mother-daughter, when you're a mother-son, when you're a father-son, whatever it is, going into an experience like that because of how much gets brought up. So continue. I just wanted to throw that in there. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm super grateful, right? It's like, I am so damn grateful that I get to be the pattern breaker, that I get to heal the things that my ancestors could not heal. And not only does it enhance my life, does it enhance my health, does it optimize my metabolism, but it helps and supports every single generation for the foreseeable future, right? Like my children, my children's children, my great-great-grandchildren, right? Like I get to support them in their physical, their mental, their emotional, and their energetic health and well-being by diving into this work and healing the trauma and changing the patterns. So yes, like gratitude, gratitude, gratitude.
Wow.
So much gratitude.
It's so amazing, and I'm curious if you're open to sharing, like, how did that experience lead up? Did you do it yet? I mean, I think you've gone through it with your mom. So like, what came out of that for you? I'd love to hear this because I think a lot of listeners are probably feeling like I do, right? Like, oh, I wish I could have that happen. And I'm curious for you because I imagine maybe it was all sunshine and rainbows, but also maybe it was challenging as well. And these are things that, for any of us that get peanut butter and jelly over these things, we must hear because I think a lot of the time, at least for me, and I won't project it on anyone else, but I end up thinking like, oh my God, of all the good things that can happen. And that's 50% of it for sure. But also challenges can arise. And how are we going to navigate those? What do they look like, et cetera? So I'd love if you could dive into that a little bit if you're open to sharing.
I would love to share. Yeah. So for my mom, she had a super beautiful, super peaceful experience. And I fucking love that for her. I did not have such a peaceful journey, right? As the pattern breaker, you're the one that gets to purge all the shit. So yes, I had a very deep purging experience with these two medicines, which is not common for me. It's not common to purge with mushrooms. It's not common for me to purge with MDMA. And yeah, I had this like what started the purge was actually this visual. I was like out in the music and the sound journey. And what brought me back into my body was this like visual of this. It was like this mix of like a parasite and a scorpion that was like moving around in this like black sludge in my third eye. And as soon as it started moving around, I was like, I knew it was coming. Yeah. So I like ran to the bathroom and I was in there for probably about like an hour, like purging. And yeah, it was very cleansing. At one point, my mom actually walked into the bathroom to like check on me. I was with a guardian of the ceremony and she walks in and we had conversation before going into ceremony. And one of the things that we were bringing into the ceremony together was forgiveness for the women in the past, for their anger, for their resentment. And she walks into the bathroom and I'm like keeled over the toilet. And she goes, I forgave my mother. And I looked at her, I was like, no shit, you don't say. I'm purging it into the toilet right now.
That is so hilarious.
It was super funny. And also like, serious, it's like, but this is where we get to like, you get to play and you get to have the jokes and you also get to be deep in the work. And I think a lot of people take this so seriously, and it is a serious matter. And it's like, play with it, have fun, like get weird, don't be, serious Sally all the time. Like it's fine. Really. You're going to be fine.
It's so true. We were talking about that before we hit record about the disease that is seriousness. And one of my new favorite quotes that I say all the time, I probably said it in 3 episodes already, but life is far too serious to ever be taken seriously. And it's like literally the quote that rings around my head, because how many people that we both have seen, right? And this is no judgment, right? But how many people that I know get stuck in the archetype of healing? They're always having to heal. And, again, like there's always more that you can find, right? There's always more healing that can be done. But at the same time, if you're always looking for it, then you're not really living, Like if we look at kids, for instance, kids aren't worried about what they have to heal, but albeit, like they do have healing to be done, right? They came into this lifetime with some type of generational trauma. No one comes out unnicked from, generational trauma and ancestral lineage work. So, again, like a kid will be in a state of joy until an emotion arises that's not joy. And because they haven't been told yet that certain emotions are good or bad or desirable or undesirable, they just allow themselves to go through it. But what happens when they're done? They don't get stuck in, oh, what's next to heal, right? What do I have to work on next? They just get back to their innate state of being, which is joy, until that joy leaves again and it turns into something else. And I think that, for me, like really getting into that frame of mind again of like being a kid and allowing whatever healing is ready for me to come forth, but not to go searching for it all the time, has been so helpful, because now when it comes out, I can just laugh at it, like I can take it seriously. I can really like, hone into it and be focused and be present with it, but it doesn't mean I can't laugh, and Combo has been a big teacher of that. Whenever I do Combo, Mark always says the assignment is to sit up straight and bonus points if you smile. And Combo's been a big teacher in that, because if you can smile through getting, selectively poisoning yourself with frog poison and vomiting everywhere for 20 minutes, then what else is life going to give you that you really can't laugh at,
I have my first 2 ceremonies with Combo on the books in July, and I'm like, okay, here we go. But no, and you make a really, really beautiful point here, because we're talking about generational trauma, and I think this is important as well, right? It's children have a beautiful way of actually feeling the emotion and moving it through them, processing it through their choice, or unconscious choice, to feel, to cry, to scream, to yell, to have a temper tantrum. And the way that generational trauma gets passed down is by humans not feeling the feels, not feeling into the emotions, not experiencing it, not yelling, not crying, not shaking, right? Like not letting it out, not releasing it. And so, yeah, I love what you're saying here, right? It's yes about this concept of being present, but it's also this, and not so serious all the time, but it's also this concept of like in the presence, you actually get to feel the thing and be with it and move it through you, so that you don't pass it on to your children, so that you don't pass it on to your grandchildren, and so that you don't make yourself sick.
Yo, what is up, everybody? I hope you were enjoying the show, and I wanted to take a second while I had your ear to tell you about an upcoming event that I am hosting that I am beyond excited about. On August 15th, 7 p.m. Eastern, we are hosting our next Breathe with Cannabis event, and this month's theme is that of ancestral healing. For those that are hearing about these workshops for the first time, they are a 2.5-hour live cannabis and breathwork ceremony hosted online through Zoom that you can attend right from the comfort of your own living room with an amazing community of like-minded individuals from all around the world. These workshops are an absolutely incredible way for any of you who have been looking to open up the psychedelic powers I speak of often with cannabis on the show to be able to do so, and we want you to experience it for yourself. To find out more info on this month's theme, the breakdown of the event, and to register and save your spot, head to the link in the show notes, and I am so looking forward to guiding all of you into ancestral healing through the powers of cannabis and breathwork. Enjoy the rest of the show. Yes, 100%. That is like, say it louder for the people in the back, right? But like, it's so accurate that, again, like there was a study or some paper that came out where the guy who founded TRE, Tension and Trauma Release Exercise, he basically found that during, I think it was World War II, he was in bomb shelters. He was over in France or somewhere over in Europe area. But basically, he noticed that when the bombs would drop, all of the kids would go into that traumatic response, that very unconscious and natural traumatic response, but the adults wouldn't. And so we started asking them, like, hey, are you feeling anything when these bombs go off? And they were like, oh yeah, we feel that cue to shake, but we're strong. We don't need to. And, if you look at animals in the wild, if a gazelle almost gets eaten by a lion, the first thing it does is shake it off. Or if you ever see a dog almost get hit by a car, it shakes it off, right? So I think that, our minds in a way have become our own worst enemy because we think too much about those things that are just autonomic. And sometimes because of societal standards and things like that, boys don't cry, these kind of things, right? Like it's kind of that thing where people stop doing the things that actually lead to better health. And then what starts happening is we end up thinking that we need to do so much more, go to all the appointments, see all the therapists, all these things, which again are all great things. But a lot of the times, like what we need is just to surrender and let go and let the experience of life guide us as it does. And, that's again what psychedelics have been so powerful for me in showing me is that for a long time, I had this belief that I couldn't cry, right? And I inherited this from my mother. She would say it all the time. And I would always be like, that's stupid, But even though I thought it was stupid, I apparently took it on because I started realizing after my dad passed away, like, oh, fuck, I'm having that thing happen again. So there was a time during a mushroom experience where I was laughing and, I was like, one with the creator having a blast. Rachel was next to me. She was stuck in a thought loop that was just, reoccurring for hours. I didn't know that at the time. And basically, like, I had this thought pass through me, which was like, oh my God, laughter is a lot like crying. And the second I said it out loud, I felt this like complete inversion and I just started crying my eyes out. And I was like, whoa. And it was just like a funny thing because it showed me like, dude, when you just get yourself out of the way, the body knows how to do everything it's meant to do. Just get the mind out of the way long enough. It's so funny. What a cosmic joke,
And we live so much in the mind that and that is a big part of what society has led us to. It's led us to such a masculine way of living and being, which is so much in the mind and not in the body. And so in my work, one of the things that I do is I help people, specifically women, but I help people like tap into their bodies, tap into that innate wisdom, tap into the feeling body, because that's where our power lives. Our power lives, our creative power. It lives in our bodies. It is our being, our body is where source gets to run through. And when you tap into that, you can create anything. And so, it's been really, really beautiful for me diving into this journey, right? This first ceremony with my mom was literally just like the door opening into like the deep generational feminine wounds. And over the last couple of weeks, a lot more has come through. After that ceremony, I've been calling in a really beautiful conscious partnership for a little while. And no surprise, less than a week after that ceremony, someone walks into my life that is immediately like, I'm here to hold you in all of this. And I'm here to do the work with you. I was like, whoa, okay. Like whole new level of surrendering to the masculine so that I can like be in all this, the feminine feels, right? But a lot of what this has done is it's opened doors. It's opened doors for me to see new things, to understand new things, to make new connections. And that's what I love about psychedelics is it gets the mind out of the way so that you can see more clearly these things that you haven't been able to connect the dots with. And so that weekend that I actually met this individual, a week after the mushroom ceremony with my mom, I ended up smoking some DMT that weekend. And dude, one hit of this pen and it fucking sent me. And I'm talking about not just like sent me like high wise, but like a whole nother dimension. So it's actually, again, a really intense experience. However, I was okay. I took one hit of this pen. It went around the whole group again. And by the time it came back to me, time had gone somewhere else. And I shook my head and I was like, nope, like I'm good. And in that moment, I fainted. This is not a super common experience with psychedelics, but oftentimes when a lot of trauma comes up, the body will do things like this to process it. So my body faints. I end up like projectile, like throwing my body down the mountain, start like rolling down the mountain.
Oh my God.
And I'm out for like 3 to 5 minutes, right? And when I come back to while I was out, I'll say I had this like experience where it was like I was re-experiencing like a past life. And I had these visions of this woman that was like trapped in this darkness, trapped in like this room. She couldn't get out. And when I came back to, I had two beautiful men and amazing humans over me, just like holding space for me, holding my body, supporting me. And I felt like I was like having this super difficult time, like coming back into my body. It was like, I was like in the veil, which was crazy. And in the process of coming back, I heard all these like screams happening inside my body, which was super weird. And it was like hearing these things. And I was like, where's this coming from? This connects to an experience I had yesterday. So I'm gonna come back to this. We'll bookmark that. And then as I started coming back into my body, I'm like screaming and I'm crying and I'm just letting my body like do what it needed to do. And after I came back to and I was grounded, like I felt so much lighter, but I was like, whoa, what was that? That just showed me something. And I don't totally know what it is, but like this is here for me for some reason. So I noted that and I've been like, okay, there's something coming up here. I know that after I ripped all the walls down in ceremony with my mom, one of the things that I was lacking was this feeling of safety, not for myself, but it was like the generations past needed this feeling of safety that they never had. So I reached out to a past therapist who is absolutely incredible. She really just like holds space for you to tap into the wisdom of your body and then bring safety to different parts of yourself. She uses like sacred geometry. She uses toning. She uses eye movements. She uses like brain hemisphere music, bilateral music. So it helps with passing through the frontal lobe. So you get out of the logical mind, you get into the body, and your body can actually do what it needs to do, and it can remember the things it needs to remember. So I booked a session with her. That was yesterday. Oh my Lanta. This session was insane. I asked her, I was like, can you do this work for generational healing? And she was like, absolutely. Like, great, let's do it. So I opted into the session with her, and I ended up getting to what she guided me to do is call in 4 guides, new guides that were ready to come forward that I hadn't connected with. And they guided me through this beautiful journey of actually getting to remember and re-experience and process the things related to those 2 experiences that came up in the DMT journey for me that are related to all the feminine wounds that I dove into with my mom in ceremony. And I had these crazy experiences come up from past lives. It's like totally out of my mind. My body remembers. Your body remembers everything. And I was like beyond blown away with what came through and how it tied back to this DMT journey. And like the 2 things, can I share the 2 things that came up?
Please do. Yes.
So in the session yesterday, these 2 experiences came up for me, and I will preface this with a trigger warning because there is a little bit intense for any of the women listening who may have some feminine wounds here. Same, I get it. I see you. But yeah, like what came up for me were these 2 experiences from past lives, where the first one was like this woman in a tribe who her baby had been taken away from her and her baby had been murdered. There was like a genocide happening, and these men in like this armor were going through the village, like mass killing and like burning down the village. And those screams that came up in my body in that DMT journey was the only thing I kept hearing as I'm like processing this experience in my body yesterday in this therapy session. And I was like, oh, like that's where the screams were coming from, were these women screeching because their babies are being taken away and their city and their communities being burned and murdered. And so I was like, whoa, that's wild. Okay. So I got to process that and move it through me. And then the second experience that came up was in relation to that woman who was trapped. And it was, again, a woman, she was pregnant with this baby and she was trapped and being held hostage in this room. And she had a miscarriage. And so she's like standing there and she's like bleeding and she's screaming for help and no one was coming. And she gave up. She became lifeless. Like this deep feeling of like defeat came over her. And it led to me seeing that there was a man that ended up showing up and assaulting her physically, sexually, like emotionally, and getting to understand these 2 experiences, process the emotion in my body, and like realize how it was connected not only to the DMT experience that like just started to lift the veil to show me what was going on, but also so deeply connected to the feminine wounds that have run so deep in my family that I've been so diligently working with and patiently working with over the last couple of years, so that I can fully step into owning my voice, speaking my truth, expressing my needs. And more specifically, a common wound for women, which is what I've been working so hard on over the last couple of years, is stepping out of the hyper independent state of being and allowing myself to let down my walls by tuning into my body, listening to my body's wisdom, and being able to discern who can I trust, who is it safe to let in, where do I need to set boundaries? And that allows me to take down those walls, soften into my feminine and out of that hyper masculine, hyper independent state of like, I don't need no man, I can do it myself, right?
Yeah.
And like that can be great. And it led me to not allow the masculine into my life. It led me to not allow people into my life. It led me to really push away a lot of humans and put up those walls, which prevented me from connection. It prevented me from experiencing intimacy. It prevented me from being able to receive anything from financial abundance to pleasure in my life to really any experience that made me happy and joyful. And so it was really beautiful getting to be in this session yesterday and see how these two experiences from life that happened, who knows how long ago, are still moving through the DNA of my family. And I come in and I'm like, no more. We're going to change this. We're going to process this. And we're going to move through this so that this doesn't continue to plague my generations. And I'm just, super honored and super grateful that like I have the resiliency, that I have the knowledge, that I have the tools, that I have the connection to do this. And as I have, let me tell you, it has brought the most beautiful relationships into my life. It has brought the most incredible friends into my life. It has brought the most aligned clients into my life. It has massively expanded my business. It has allowed me to step into my voice, to speak my truth, to start singing and producing music. And now it's really nudging me to get on stage and to start speaking and bringing my medicine into companies that are really struggling because they don't have the community, they don't have the connection, they don't have the intimacy. And like, I'm just ready to show up here and like shake people up a little bit and get on stage and like run a room like a lion and be like, meow, this is what you can have.
Leah, I love that so much. And, you said so many beautiful things in there. And thank you so much, first of all, for sharing those experiences. And, like for me, I can tell the healing that occurred during them because our ability to speak about challenges like that and not bypass the emotion, that's not what we're talking about, but be able to embody the emotion, but allow it to speak through us and see it happening for us is our ability to see the healing taking place, and that's like going back to the whole idea that healing can be fun, right? Like, these stories that you have the courage to tell, maybe someone else listening right now has the yearning to tell them, but they haven't found the courage yet, right? And now what you're doing is giving them a permission slip to say, hey, we're all the same here. None of us are more special than another person. If I can do this, if I can have the courage, then so can you. And the way that you do it is through finding aligned community members where you feel safe to go there. You feel supported, right? You start putting yourself in the containers that really help you feel alive, that help you feel seen, that help you feel validated. And if you do that, your life will open up, just like you said, in magical, completely new ways. And, one of the things that I'm big on too is this idea that, at least for me, right? And again, I'll never project it, but for me, I was an adder. And what I mean by that is whenever something was going wrong, it must be something else I need to do to fix it, right? And this can get us into a thirst trap of sorts because what are we talking about with the body, right? Like, yeah, it's like, we don't need to do more because doing comes from the mind. And the mind is not bad, right? I'm not, doing that whole thing and the mind isn't necessary. The mind is extremely necessary, but the heart is supposed to lead the dance. The mind, which is more masculine, is supposed to follow the feminine because the feminine allows us to really get into what we're here to do. The mind helps us figure out the how, right? Which is essential. But if we don't have the what before we have the how, then the how is just leading us in every direction, right? And trying to get us to pile more stuff on. And what you so perfectly and beautifully articulated there is the idea of subtraction, right? Actually taking weight off from what we're carrying so we have more room from then which to place new things into. You know, like you couldn't have gone through that healing if you were in 7 different courses at the same time, you know, trying to build 3 different businesses, right? Like all great things, right? We're not saying those things are bad, but at the same time, like what are we really trying to do? And do we really need to add anything else? Or is the right prescription here to actually subtract things? So I'm so glad you shared that because it's one of the challenges I find more and more people getting stuck in. I definitely have been stuck there many times. And it's a pattern that I've been in the process of overcoming and, you know, doing more work towards. But it's always fascinating to me how, like, you know, when I just let myself chill for a couple of days, all of a sudden all the creativity comes back. When I let myself chill for a couple of days, I have a whole newfound appreciation for my purpose and what I do. And it's really that idea of the absence makes the heart grow fonder. You know, when we let everything in our life die away for a little while and see what sticks, we really find out what's important to us. And we also find out what is no longer serving us so we can take that out and make room for what is now going to serve us. So it's really cool. And I'm so glad you talked about that because it's a big thing that is in my life and many other people's too.
Absolutely. And yes, I'm a women's coach and I talk about this from like the feminine perspective. And what I want to make really clear is that this comes up in men and in women. It doesn't matter what your gender is, right? You talked about it earlier. With men, the feminine wounds in men are, I have to be so strong and I can't show my emotions. And so now men are actually not tapping into their body. They're not slowing down, which is what you just got at. And they're not feeling into the physical body, which is where they get to create. It's where they get to find alignment with their passions, with their purpose, right? Because when you're living up in the logical mind all the time and you're trying to copy society and what society says and do more, succeed more, you actually find yourself usually and more often than not out of alignment, unhappy, unhealthy. And then that's where like life forces you to stop and you're like, oh shit, this is not it. Right. And and reciprocal, like for women, women feel so much. And more often than not, they're led to feel bad about it. They're led to feel like they're too much because of their emotions. They're led to feel like they're not seen, they're not heard, and they're not welcome. And so then that's what leads them to put up those walls that we talked about earlier, where they're not letting people in. Right. And so you see these walls on both ends for men and women where they're not letting people in. They're not letting people fully see them. They're not letting people fully like accept them in their emotions. There's fear there. It's a fear-based way of living, and that disconnects us. And that, in my opinion, is what leads to toxic relationships, which leads to higher rates of divorce. Because when you're in a partnership and you're not allowing your partner to see you, to feel you, to really hear you, and to understand what's happening in your heart, in your body, they can't understand you and they can't meet you. And if you're not meeting each other in communication, if you're not meeting each other in your needs and your desires, you can't actually support each other in expanding. And so I see these feminine wounds be and you talked about it from this level of like subtraction, right? Slowing down so you can receive. I see this being such an important thing for the rise in consciousness that we're seeing and that is so damn needed in this world right now, so that we can bring healing to the world around us, so that we can stop the insane prevalence of anger and frustration and war and disconnection, right? And battle. Like we're battling each other so damn much. And it's like, you know what? If we allowed ourselves to slow down and to feel, would we have so much to battle with? Probably not.
100%. I mean, I totally agree. And it's funny because, Rach and I have been together for about 7 years now. And when we first met, I was leading more feminine and she was leading more masculine, and she would have no problem. Like we both worked at the dispensary, for listeners. You guys know this already, but she got hired as the purchasing manager. And I remember I was like triggered, not at her, but like just this company, like, why don't they see me, and things like that. And what I've realized in hindsight was that, and we weren't even dating at that point, but, again, I was much more feminine at that point. I was more airy fairy. I was more like tuning into my emotions, which again is great. It's awesome. It's not a bad thing. But it was kind of like as a man, right? Like I was leading a little more feminine than was a balance point. And for her as a woman, she was leading a little more masculine than a balance point. And, the reason is because I was afraid to go take action because I was afraid of the what ifs, right? And she was afraid to slow down because there was a lot of stuff in her nervous system. And so when we met each other, at first, here is this woman who was so driven, right? And it definitely triggered me a lot. Not in a bad way, not at her, but just like I knew that I wasn't showing up for myself. It had nothing to do with anyone else. And this was like my reminder of it, right? Talk about great lessons and talk about mirroring back what we need to see in each other. So there was a certain point where in 2019, I had a fire just start under my ass. It was right after an MDMA experience. And I told the story probably 100 times on the show, so I won't go into it. But basically, after that experience is when I realized I was connecting with cannabis unconsciously, went through the whole thing, then took and lifted, and then my whole life changed, basically. And it's funny because as I got more into my masculine and felt very comfortable there and not getting stuck in my masculine, but now having both sides, being able to access my feminine, being able to access my masculine, well, naturally, it opened up the ability for Rachel to feel safer to go more feminine. And it's been amazing because, I'm not gonna generalize, but I'll tell you, for me individually, in my subjective experience as a man in a partnership, I can tell you that for me, the most healing thing that Rachel does is be in her feminine for me. I talk to her all the time about she's into astrology and all what I call witchy stuff. And I love it. Like, when she first got into it, she was like, what do you think about me getting into this stuff? And I was like, go deeper, keep going. Like, I want to come home and see you on a crystal ball and be like, baby, tell me what's going on. Like, to me, like, if you look back, I feel like, again, Viking culture obviously had a lot of challenges within it. But one of the things that the shows get really good is that every strong man in that show relies on a woman who is a seer that sees into the unseen worlds and is an oracle. And I really feel like that's women are one of the main things that women are here to do, or one of the main strengths they have is to see into these unseen realms because they're so close to them. Where men, we can get kind of confused, right? Like, we'll go out, we'll charge, we'll lead the battle. But sometimes, right, our ego will get ahead of us or whatnot. And, women in my life, like, they can check me in a way that's so loving, but I get the message, and that wasn't available when I was too in my feminine, and vice versa when she was too in her masculine, So again, it's not to say that masculine and feminine energy is better for a certain gender or whatever, right? It's just to say that in my experience, that was very healing. And so I can only imagine from a woman's perspective, what's going on as you tap more into that feminine, because like you were saying, right, the second you tap more into that, and you've been tapping into this for a long time, but like new levels, right, bring about new things. As you tap into that, all of a sudden the conscious man you're looking for pops up, right? And you didn't have to go work for it. You didn't have to go look for him, right? There was no effort, because again, receiving, which is feminine energy, means just that. Receiving isn't doing, ladies and gents, it's receiving, right? It's like when I bring flowers home for Rachel, she didn't ask me for them. I just wanted to give them to her because she's in a state of being able to receive, and I can feel that, and I want to take care of her, not because she needs it, not because she needs a man to take care of her, but because she deserves it, and that's a big difference there as well, for sure.
Yeah. And you talk about this beautifully. The feminine plays on the masculine and supports the masculine's healing. The masculine plays on the feminine and supports the feminine's healing. But we can't do that if we're not meeting ourselves and exactly where we're at and tuning into our bodies and recognizing what it is that we need and how we can better support ourselves. Because our focus is more often than not like outwardly in the world around us versus inwardly with ourselves and what we need. And you talk about like the oracle and the witch, right? And yes, it's true. We are oracles as women. We are witches as women. And we at one point in time were fucking burned at the stake for that. For listening to our body, for healing through nature, for being connected to ourselves enough to help someone else by being a mirror and reflecting back to them. And we were tortured for that, right? And, in the opposite way, men, there was one point in time in history where men were going off and they were having to fight and they were at battle and there wasn't the space for their emotions, right? And so there are these challenges that we've faced throughout history that have prevented us from being able to connect in the way in today's world, in today's society, that we get to continue elevating this level of consciousness. And yeah, it's like without the masculine showing up, the feminine can't slow down and receive and relax, right? Because the masculine holds the container for the feminine, brings this feeling of safety, right? And by doing that, the feminine also reminds the masculine it's okay to slow down and it's okay to feel. It's okay to follow your gut and your intuition and do the things that feel good for you. You don't have to force yourself into anything. right?
Yeah, 100%. It's so funny because this has exactly been my exact experience over the last, I would say, especially year, but arguably the last 7 years in different stages. But, new levels, new devils, as they say, right?
Mhm.
And I know when I went on Aubrey and business kind of went fucking crazy, it was so easy for me to get stuck right back in the old pattern of just go, 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 go. And, trying really hard, like being addicted to that whole, like, I worked hard for this, or I'm working hard for this, and all of these things. And it's so funny how Rachel would just be like, are you sure you want to keep spelling yourself with that? Right? You sure you want to keep telling yourself that you have to keep working so hard to do these things? Because at the end of the day, there wasn't hard work that went into me getting on podcasts or whatever goals I've had. The goals that I've had to work hard for were really fucking hard to get. A lot of other ones were actually wildly easy to happen, right? And the difference was that when they were easy, I was unaware that I was in receiver mode, right? I was really like honing in the energy, honing in the vision of what that future felt like. And I wasn't attached to the outcome. But then as soon as I got a big goal, right? Like going on a certain podcast or whatever, then I would get back into the old pattern of like, I must need to keep doing that. And it was like, dude, that's not what you did to get on that show to begin with, or have that goal, or build that business, or reach that financial, or whatever the fuck it is, right? Like they never come from hard work. They come from being able to receive, and therefore smart work is how I call it, like in tune work, intuition work, these kind of things. And, it's been amazing because getting into the crypto space recently has been another whole level to that. I'm in there. My mentorship group is an all-star team. It's so funny. It's me, Alex Morningstar, my buddy Sheev from the CCC, and Jason Ganzuk in there. And I don't know if you know Jason, but he's an amazing Czech level practitioner and just an incredible guy, like one of my best homies. He does my whole HTMA protocol, and he's a doctor of medical Qigong. And, again, like it's been amazing to see how all of us have had very similar goals, but all of us have also had similar breakthroughs. Like, again, for Jason, and I don't think this is revealing anything he wouldn't say because he already made a post about it, but one of the big things he realized recently was like, I don't want to be working constantly. Like, I think I used to have an identity where working hard like that was kind of like my false masculine, side. And dude, it was like when he was saying it, I was like, fuck, man, I feel attacked. That's exactly what I'm going through right now.
You mean we're not supposed to work every day 9 to 5? What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. You
40
mean we're
hours a
supposed
week?
to have free time to spend with our friends and family? That's not productive. Like, let's do some more things that produce things, It's the silliest fucking thing ever. And one of the silliest, like, patterns that we've fallen into as a society is that we should be doing things all the time, and that we're only worth what we produce. And, if I work 60 to 80 hours a week, I can brag about that. It's like, dude, to me, if you're telling me you're working 60, 80 hours a week, I'm like, that is not efficient and you're failing, bro. Like, if you look at any person who's truly successful, not just financially, but like really got it figured out, they're working like 2 to 4 hours a day max. And they're probably working 3 to 4 days a week. And the rest of the time, they're not working, but they're giving time for creativity to naturally do its thing. So it's almost like they're on an autonomous mode where they're not working, but they're leaving themselves open, receiver mode once again, for ideas that pop through, things like that. And, again, like meeting enough of those people has really helped me a lot in seeing like the pattern I'm doing, right, will get you to like, I had someone break this down for me recently in terms of financial goals. Like, yeah, thugging it out like that, drinking more coffee, whatever it takes, that'll get you to 6 figures in business, right? But if you want to last and you want to make it higher than that, you're going to have to change those patterns and actually become much more efficient. And it was crazy because when I heard that, my soul knew it to be true. It was like my soul had been waiting for someone else besides me to tell me that because I thought I was wrong or all these things. But in reality, it's just so funny how these energetics work that a lot of the times we're just working so hard to get to a desired goal that we actually make it way harder on ourselves, because it's really not about like having to push and grind and all of that. It's really not. It's crazy.
No. And when you can have that easier structure to get to that like 6-figure place that actually allows you to do it with ease and not force, it's like, wouldn't you rather have 6 figures and like feel so like lit up and turned on and like pleasured by every aspect of life? Like I was just in a program called Wealthy Woman, and it really ingrained in me. I was like, wow, like I am well. And this was me like the first week of this course. I was like, I joined this course to help with exactly what we're talking about, bringing more of this like ease in structure to the foundations of my business so that like I can be in that feminine flow, right? Be with that ease in receiving.
Hmm.
And like I walked into this program and I was like, holy shit. I am wealthy in every single damn area of my life. And that was such a cool realization to be like, oh my God, my friendships, my health, my relationships, my spirituality, my business. I was like, damn, girl, like, good for you.
I love that. And I love it specifically for two reasons. Number one, like Mark always says, we got to be our own biggest cheerleaders in life, right? Or cheermen, depending. I don't know if they have a different name for men cheerleaders, but like we have to be like our own biggest cheerleader in life, right? We have to celebrate our wins. And the other reason I love it is because it perfectly articulates one of my favorite ideas, theories, beliefs, whatever you want to call it, which is how we do anything is how we do everything. And it's so true because for someone listening, you may have a challenge in business right now. Maybe you have a challenge in a romantic relationship. Maybe you have a challenge with a friend. Maybe you have a challenge with your parents, right? And so your mind may be telling you have all these different challenges. Talk about overwhelm, right? I have 17 different challenges. What if it was just one pattern playing out in 17 different areas of your life? That's typically what it is, And so when one domino falls, the rest fall. And that's been one of the greatest things to realize over and over because I constantly fall back into that, right? Of like, oh my God, I have separate issues. And then from there, when I heal one and all the rest of them start opening up, I'm like, oh my God, it's like life has this thing built in where it's supposed to be easy. Weird, huh?
And that's like jarring to our nervous systems because for so long, it's like we've been taught that it's not supposed to be easy, that it actually is hard. And so then when it feels easy, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this isn't it? And then in actuality, when you get to be with it, you're like, oh, this is it.
Yeah. It's like, I bring this up all the time too, but what you just said totally did. It was like that cognitive shift between like, this is it. And like, oh, this is it. It's like in Home Alone where Kevin's like, I made my family disappear. Oh, I made my family disappear, like,
disappear.
Yeah. That cognitive shift is worth its weight in gold, because
But that's all it is. It's the mindset shift. It's just a simple fucking mindset shift. And we make it seem so hard and it's not. It takes, right? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And the moment that you put on a different colored glasses and look at the same thing from a different lens, the whole thing changes. I actually just did this super powerful activity this week. I'd love to share because it even though it's so simple, like, and I've done things like this, to the way that it was put together was so powerful. And so today is day 10 of a heavy metal and parasite detox. It's been amazing. Like what I've emitted from my body, I will not share. It's kind of gross. And it's created so much space. And like this week, I have had the highest income week over the last 10 days, a little over a week, than I've had in a long time. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we get to clear all the things to create space for the new, right? Anyways, the whole activity. So, Ryan, you get me going. Always.
I love it. You get me going too.
Just our fire. Our fires just like get together and they just
fire over here. A mean fire.
Yeah. So it was liver day. And for anyone that is not super familiar with the body and with emotions, the liver is what houses anger and resentment. And that's one of the biggest things that I've been working through. And this activity was get a piece of paper. On one side, write the worst, and on one side, write the best. And so you start by writing a list of all the worst things that have ever happened to you in your life. You flip it over, and then you write over the best, a list of all the best things that have happened in your life. And then you go back to where it says the worst, and you write next to each one of them why you are so grateful for every single one of them, but more specifically, what it has allowed you to create in your life, what it has allowed you to step into. And it sounds so like simple, but there were things in there that I've been like, oh yeah, like I've done work around this. I've done plenty of work around this. And I've, forgiven these people and I've done my gratitude. But being in the place that I am today, this week, reflecting on them, getting to see, wow, this is actually what allowed me to do this. Wow. Right. And one of the biggest shifts for me, and I'll openly share this, I've been really frustrated about, and I think a lot of us have been here, are here, and I think you can relate. Fucking credit card debt,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Like it just fucking sneaks right up on you, bites you in the ass, and is like, I'm back, bitch. And I'm like, ugh. Okay. So I've been super frustrated about like the credit card debt that I've racked up again in the last year. And I've been like, fuck, are you kidding me? I'm back here again after I paid all of this off the first time. And I'm like, damn. And so I sat there, and when I got to this place of reflecting on like why I'm grateful for this credit card debt and what it's actually created and allowed me to have in this life, I realized that all that debt that I've racked up in the last year has allowed me to create the most incredible life that I've always dreamed of. I've always desired. Over a little over 1 year ago, I moved to Colorado. I moved to Boulder because I was like, I know that there's something here. I don't know what's here. Of course, I meet Austin and my whole life changes, right? And as frustrated as I was for so long about that, I actually got to see it from this other side of being like, wow, that money that I spent is what created the wealthiest, most abundant, most incredible life experience, incredible community, most aligned business, most amazing home. I am so in love with every single aspect of my life, and being able to see this debt for what it's given me versus just being frustrated about it. Oh my God, it changed so much for me this week.
I love that. And Leah, we'll have to talk about some of the things I've learned around credit card debt because, not to get on a side quest here, but, for anyone, yeah, right. Side quest incoming. For anyone who's in credit card debt, there are a lot of options, put it that way, right? And the 1% actually use debt to actually support them. Because when you don't own anything, what's the best that could happen? They send you a summons to court. You just send back, I do not consent, do not contract. What the fuck are they going to do, right? So at the end of the day, they can hurt your credit score, but that's really about it. And you can repair that, and things of that nature. But I totally get, to go back onto the main quest here and what you're talking about, because we cannot control the events that happen in life. The only thing we can control is our perspective on it. And that is our power. That is what we get to choose. And like you said, there is always evidence on both sides. It doesn't mean to bypass the idea of like, oh my God, this is fearful that I have credit card debt. But it's also to make it an even playing field. Like, yes, that exists. I have fear around that. But also look at the positive side of what this has done, right? I didn't spend it on cocaine and hookers. I didn't spend it in a casino, right? Like I spent it.
If you did, that's okay. We still love
you. No judgment, right? But again, great spirits down for whatever, as Paul Chek says, right? God may be all knowing, but it's not all experience. So any experience is valid in the eyes of God. But, at the end of the day, like you spent that money to architect a life that is rich with not only friendships and purpose and meaning, but also you've set yourself up, like you were saying, where you've made more income in the last week than you have in a long time. So like, having the faith of like, if you talk to almost anyone who's successful, there's always a period where they're like, yep, and I maxed out my credit cards and that was it. I had no more options left. And then it hit, right? And that's really how the universe works. I mean, for one thing you may not know, I don't know if I told you this, I forget how long since we've been talked, but anyone who's listening, I don't know if I've ever released this on here, but I'm in a mastermind right now with my buddy Amethyst, where for the last year and a half, I've been learning how to take out business cards and offboard the money and onboard it into crypto. So you want to talk about fear, right? Taking out credit cards, specifically to take the money off and put it in crypto, a very volatile area. You want to talk nervous system regulation? Holy shit, it's been the biggest spiritual experience of my fucking life, right? Talk about a psychedelic experience. And what you just did there is what I feel is the beauty of psychedelics, right? Because when you were going through that experience, right, when you had that parasite crawling and you felt that purge coming, right, like you could have easily been in the fear state over that. And again, maybe some of it was scary for you. You didn't know what was happening, right? And again, that's 50% of it. But the other side is, what if I just lean into it? What's the best thing that could happen out of this? And at the end of the day, like, the things that we get so worried about, I mean, to put it this way, like the world I've been getting into is really starting to change my life in the fact that credit scores aren't even going to matter. Pretty soon, banks aren't going to matter. Like if you go try to take out $5,000 at the bank, good luck, right? You'll realize real quick that you don't really have control over your money. So at the end of the day, like I'm kind of calling their bluff, where I'm like, well, I really believe this isn't going to exist that much longer. So why the fuck would I not take advantage of it? Because at the end of the day, what's the worst case scenario? You file bankruptcy, you can't get a credit card for a year and your life keeps on going. Because the powers that shouldn't be, right? they have implemented certain loopholes like bankruptcy, and they actually use it as a game, right? So when you understand the game, it becomes a lot less scary. And that's one of the reasons I got into all this, because I was feeling a lot of fear around these things. But it's just amazing to hear more and more people taking those risks and really putting themselves out there, because to the victor go the spoils, right? To the people that are willing to put themselves in degrees of uncomfortability, and stretch their comfort zone, all the gold in the universe comes to you, And so I'm so grateful you shared that, because I guarantee there's at least one or two people listening that before this episode had some fear in their nervous system around credit card debt and just looking at it as a negative. And maybe now they can look at it as like, well, hey, actually, I've given myself a place to live. I've given myself, different experiences. I've been able to eat high quality food, whatever it is that you've spent your credit card debt on. And at the end of the day, that money is yours already. I won't get into it totally. If you guys want to hear about that, go back and listen to Brandon Joe Williams' episode. But, again, like, it's not even their money. It's actually your money. It comes from a Cess Corp trust that's incorporated for you when you're born and get a birth certificate. So the idea is, at the end of the day, you're not even taking any money that's not yours anyway. So go spend that shit. Not financial advice, guys. But yeah.
The system is crazy. And you know what? This does bring up like two reminders for me that I'd love to share with the audience. And the first one is, the only way through is through.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. The only way through the damn space in front of you is to hold your head high, put your shoulders back, tuck your booty in there, and like send yourself
just
through.
Keep swimming.
Right? Yeah. And, it also ties back to psychedelics, right? Because psychedelics are going to show you exactly what you need to see and what you're ready to see when you fully let go, when you allow yourself to be fully immersed in the present moment and allow yourself to be fully in it. And me and my best friend, Lily, who's actually Austin's wife, love that woman so damn much. But we have this thing, and it's a common phrase, but when we take psychedelics and we go out and we're in different places and the psychedelics are hitting and maybe things are feeling really intense and you're having that moment where like you're on the come up and like you look at your friend and you're like, okay, I'm feeling that it's happening. Like, we've all been there.
We're not in Kansas
right?
anymore.
And we're not in Kansas City anymore. Right. And actually, my friend is actually in Kansas City. Like, she's not anymore.
She's still in Kansas then, but yeah.
She's still in Kansas City. But we look at each other and we always sing to each other and we go, surrender, trust the process. And it just brings this like playfulness to like, just surrender, like let go, breathe into your heart, breathe into your belly, slow down, and just let the medicine work through you. Let God, let spirit, let source work through you. Surrender, trust, and let yourself be with the waves and move through it.
It's funny. Me and my guy friends have a saying for that too, but it's totally more guy focused. Me and Adam Chin, Mark's business partner, and Chase Tolleson and Dave Robinson, we have one which is called Dick First, right? So when we're coming up, we'll look at each other and like in that moment where like, yeah, words are getting hard, we'll just be like, bro, Dick first, dude. And basically what it means is like you go into things Dick first, right? Like go in full throttle. And, it's funny because those things, they're pattern interrupts, right? They're really what they are. Like, there's times, especially for me, when I'm in a psychedelic experience, when I start realizing like, oh, that wasn't a microdose, like that kind of idea. And like, whoops, this was more than I thought, which is like every LSD experience I've ever had, right? Which is like, it wasn't supposed to be like this, right? I was supposed to be able to still remember my name, but here we are, right?
And we're here again. Been here before.
Yeah. And it's so funny because in those moments, one of us will say that, and then all of us will start laughing and remember in that moment without consciously having to remember, like, oh yeah, we took something, we did this, we are in control. And by control, I actually mean like our control is to surrender completely. Like, why would, this was the download I got probably about 5 years ago, specifically with LSD, is that the first time I ever did LSD with the Enlifted crew, down with like a different group of people than I was usually doing it with, I had a really positive experience with LSD. And it's not that I had negative experiences before, but it was just really overwhelming most of the time. And then I realized why. I was like, Ryan, you're taking LSD and then trying to act as normal as possible in gigantic groups of people. Like, that's like the drug Olympics, bro. Like, just fucking be a goofball,
That weird, bro?
like realize you took LSD. The time to be a normal human was before you took it. So just fucking send it, dude. And once I started doing that and just realizing like, I'm just going to tell anyone that comes up to me, I'm tripping balls and this is the best you're going to get right now, then all the fear started leaving, because I started realizing a lot of what I was harboring was, being a Virgo moon, Virgo rising. How are people receiving me? Am I structured enough? Those kind of things. And I'm like, that's not the drug to do when you want to be structured, bro. That's the drug you want to do when you want to turn into a wet pool noodle, like straight up.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. All right. And it brings up this whole concept as well of like, just allow yourself to be your fullest, most authentic, weirdest fuck self, and like, let people judge you. And at the end of the day, like, people might judge you and you're going to be the one that's like sitting over there happy AF, being like, doing your happy dance. Like, wow, I feel great right now.
And also like, think about this too. This is where Hermetics has really helped me out a lot. As within, so without, as above, so below. Anyone who's judging me is just judging themselves, right? It has nothing to do with me. And, people's opinions of me are of no interest to me, and they're none of my business. And, understanding that as well, that hurt people, healed people, heal people. And at the end of the day, anyone that would be looking to judge you, they're just giving you a huge gift. Like, oh, thank you. Now I know not to spend time with you anymore. Thank you for that amazing gift. You just allowed me to subtract one person from my life and open up room for the next person that's going to treat me with respect, and in doing so, you get to come back to yourself, your inner child, et cetera, and show that individual inside of you, like, I got our back. Like, I know what kind of people I want to be around. I know what I deserve. I know what my needs are. I know what my boundaries are. And I'm going to act as such, not in like a vindictive way of like, oh, fuck that person, they judge me, but in like a really like, I'm grateful. Thank you for showing me who you are right now. And maybe there's a time in life where we can have a great conversation around this, but thank you. I really appreciate that opportunity to learn about myself in a deeper degree, come back to myself, and be willing and ready to disappoint anyone and everyone at the cost of ever disappointing myself. Because that's really what life's all about, right? Like, we're all just fractals of each other, walking each other home. And at the end of the day, some of these fractals, I was one of them for years as well, are walking around in the state where we're projecting, we're judging, et cetera. And that's not a bad thing. Again, everything is divine in the eyes of God. But through discernment, I started realizing, like, when I judge others, I'm actually just judging myself. And I want to go handle that now, because it's never about anything external to me. It's just about my perception of myself that's being multiplied to my external reality. And once you get that awareness, I'm not going to say life is a bunch of sunshine and rainbows after, but very similar to when you start meditating and you keep meditating, when you lose the mantra, you notice it quicker. And what do? You just come back to the mantra. You don't, oh, fuck, I'm thinking, oh, fuck. Like, you don't do any of that. You just come back to the mantra, and it just phases you less and less over time, and that's the real sauce.
Yeah. It's not easy, but it can come with ease. And people's reactions and responses will always teach you so much. And what I like to say is, like, when people judge you, when they're being judgmental and when they're like reacting, they're really just triggered by something that you're showing them that they're not willing to see within themselves. They're not willing to accept. They're not willing to look at. Right. And so you actually being your fully expressed self is showing somebody else what they can have, what they get to have, and it's giving them permission. And that might trigger them because they're actually not being that and they're not doing that. Right. And like, that's freedom. And what makes you more frustrated and triggered than you realizing you're actually not allowing yourself to have freedom? Like,
100%.
Damn, that's
that slaps different, and again,
that one slaps different.
Yeah, it does. Because at the end of the day, right? Like, think of it this way, right? And I'll kind of put it in perspective and make it personal about me. When I used to listen to Paul Chek or Aubrey Marcus, there was a small part of me that would get triggered. And I never really understood why, right? It wasn't like I didn't have any disdain towards them, but like I would be listening to that podcast and I would feel some angst come up in me. And what it was that they were giving me the gift of seeing, like, you too could do this, but right now you're just wasting your time telling yourself all the reasons that you couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't, etc. But then as soon as I tapped into that ability, all of a sudden I saw the forest for the trees, as they say, right? I realized that also within the shadow of those things that, are kind of like murky and kind of cloudy is the golden shadow, which is the aspects of your divinity that are also locked up because you were telling yourself stories that are disempowering. You're right that when, someone sees someone that is living life beat to a very different drum, a lot of times they will try to deflect the fact that part of them actually really wants something or some part of that lifestyle, but they are telling themselves a story they can't have it. So instead of actually realizing like, fuck, this is red pilling me right now because I've told myself I can't have that and there's someone doing it, they'll just say, oh, look at that idiot dancing the way he dances or whatever. When in reality, you know, like I say all the time, you know, like I used to get, I still do every once in a while, get trolls on Instagram. At first, it would really trigger me, you know, because I was like, fuck off. Like I'm doing my life's work here and you're just sitting behind a keyboard. But then I realized like, man, how fucking shitty that is, right? The fact that you're seeing someone living their best life and the best thing you can do with your time, your energy, and your experience of life is spend time through an avatar-less, you know, profile to say something shitty. And then I started realizing like, why is that affecting me so much? What inside of me is getting so triggered over this? And I had to do some investigatory work and realize that there was still part of me that was playing small within me and thinking that I had to prove myself to people. And when that shifted, now at this point, when people troll me, I just send back love, and not from a sarcastic or vindictive point of view, but I just say, hey, it looks like I'm not the right person for you. Feel free to unfollow and create some space for someone that really resonates with you. And it's been funny because typically I won't get a reply back, but a couple of times people have DM'd me after and said, hey, sorry, I was having a shitty day and I took it out on you and I shouldn't have. And we've actually had some really good conversations. Now, again, whether or not, you know, anything we talked about changed their life, I have no idea. But if we are the healed people that we say we are, this is what I had to ask myself. Like, if I'm healed and I believe that, and I'm on this journey of healing and I'm really entering my power zone and all these things, then why would I ever stoop down to someone else's level and try to give them a taste of their own medicine? This whole idea here is that if you are really healed, you will be able to see the fact that that person is just hurting and they are projecting it because they haven't had the courage to take accountability for it yet. And so it's an opportunity for us to give them a taste of our medicine, which is even in the face of hatred or dissing or deflecting or any of that stuff, we're still going to come from love, you know? And Free Soul, one of my favorite artists, he has a great line about this where it's basically like, no matter who fucks me over, I won't let them take the love out of my heart. And that's really the challenge here, right? Is like, how well can you stare in the face of adversity and not muster, not break under its challenge, right? Like not step away, but actually look directly into it. Like you said, the best way out is through, you know? And so how can we hold that place of love even in the face of adversity? That really, for me, along with laughter and how much we play, are the two biggest signs of someone who is really on their healing path. Is how well can they handle the hecklers and how well can they laugh, you know, and how well can they dance and all the things shamanic cultures talk about. So 100%.
I really love that perspective. And, you know, I'm actually really curious, like, where do you draw the line? Like, when do you actually use the block button? And when do you like be like, okay, like I'm gonna have some conversation with this person and be curious?
Yeah, this is a great question because, you know, I never want people to think that they have to have toxicity in their life because they're a loving being, right? There is definitely a boundary. If someone leaves a comment that is challenging or dissing me or something like that, I will comment back once with that idea of like, hey, it looks like I'm not the right person for you. Feel free to unfollow and find someone who resonates with you. And depending on how they respond to that, that's when I'll use the block button. Because I used to go back and forth with them, you know, because in my head, the story I was telling myself was, well, I'm going to give them love and I'm going to help them see. But I can't do that for them. You know, that's up to them and them only. So I will give them the opportunity. I will come from a place of love and allow themselves to see what they just did. And sometimes someone will come back and be like, hey, sorry, I'm just having a bad day or whatever, right? And that's happened pretty frequently. And then I'll continue it, right? Until it becomes disrespectful if it does or whatever. But if someone comes back with another troll comment of like, oh, I bet you're really fun at parties, whatever, I'm just like, block, see you later. You know, because at the end of the day, like, I'm not there to waste my time, my energy on someone who's clearly just trolling me, living in their basement, just like, you know, not doing anything with their life. I am there to call people forward. And I do feel like that's my responsibility to show that and really lead by example. But you get like 2 strikes of me. You know, the first strike, I take it as maybe you're having a bad day. And I've had plenty of bad days. I know what it's like. I get it. I've never gone onto someone's profile and decided to spit hate, but I've done it other ways in the past where I've taken it out on people that it wasn't actually a part of and things like that. So I have empathy and compassion. But the second they show me like they're not ready to heal right now, they're not ready to see it, cool, no worries. Doesn't mean I'm right and they're wrong. It just means I don't have time for that in my life. I don't have space for that in my life. So see you later, because I don't allow anyone in my life to treat me like that. And I wouldn't treat anyone like that. Even if I completely disagree with someone's point of view, if I love them, I will allow them gladly to have their point of view in life, because part of life is I don't know anything. Think about the earth being flat, right? I have a lot of friends that believe the earth is flat. I don't. But at the end of the day, if that's what gives them joy, who the fuck am I to say they're wrong and I'm right? I've never been to outer space. I don't fucking know. I just know based on what I believe that I believe the earth is round. But I can smoke a joint with them. I can hang out and be like, dude, tell me about this. What do they call it? The not terrarium, but there's the filament. Tell me about the filament. Tell me about this ice wall. I think it's fun. You know why? Because to the degree that you really believe something, you should be able to hear anything on the contrary and not get triggered around it. If you get triggered, it's because you don't really believe what you say you believe. That's the only reason people get triggered.
Curious.
Exactly.
Get curious.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I love what you're saying here. I relate very much. I usually give people 2 strikes. Yeah. I had an experience last week with someone like out of nowhere, never seen their name before. They like commented on one of my reels, and he was like very obviously like pointing out my nipples in the video. And I commented back and I was like, dude, everybody has nipples. And I invite you to like look deeper listen deeper to the message here. And he responded back to me and told me he wanted to bite my nipples. And I was just like, no. It was like, block.
Where do guys learn this shit? That's the thing I wonder. Because I'm like,
dude, come on.
I can't imagine that works ever, right? But if someone keeps doing it, it begs the question, is someone out there, like, is that working for some girl out there? Like, I don't know. I would imagine not, but I'm
actually really curious. Like, if any man has ever like approached a woman and been like, I want to bite your nipples, and that led you to your wife, like, I want to meet you.
Yeah, right? Like, please, like inquiring minds want to know, do these strategies work? Or like all those people online that will just like leave very risque comments on women's profiles. Like, I just don't get it. I do not understand it at all. It's like, it's one of those things that I chuckle at, and I don't chuckle. Like, I understand that like, that's a serious thing, right? Like, I don't want any guy leaving fucking weird comments on girls' profiles, but I chuckle at the sense that like, I'm like, how fucking silly can you be? Right? Like, that's just not a strategy. Like, I think what it is that men project what men want onto women. And it's not that women don't think similar to men, but they don't have to, like they don't have to. Like, for a woman, you could raise your hand and be like, hey, does anyone here want to kiss me? And probably every hand in the room would go up, right? So when you have that kind of power, like it's just totally different than men, and again, like, I want to be clear. I'm saying this. I am not supporting men going on women's profiles and saying dumb shit, but I am just genuinely curious as someone who likes psychology a lot. What the fuck is going on there? Like, does this work? Has it worked? I have no idea. I can't imagine, but yeah.
I mean, I think society plays a huge role in this, right? And this is where you and I, and this is what we've been talking about this whole podcast today. It's like we get to change the patterns and we get to be a pattern breaker. And you were talking before about this whole concept, as above, so below, as within, so without, right? And so when you start to change the patterns within you, everything around you starts to change. Not just your life, not just your business, not just your friendships, but every single person around you starts to change as well, because they start to feel your energy. They start to see what you're doing, how you're acting, how you're leading. And that is an inspiration for them and gives them a permission slip to also do things differently, to also create the change. And yeah, just like to circle it, bring it back around here. Like, please, like, if you're listening to this, like, lead yourself in a way that leads you to have the most incredible life. And that is what is going to inspire everyone else around you. One of my favorite quotes from, it was one of my best friends. She's no longer here on this earthly plane with us. But she would always remind every person in her life, be the change that you wish to see in this world. Thank you, Matt. Do you remember Amanda?
Yes, I do.
My friend Amanda?
Yes, I do.
She had brain cancer for 10 fucking years. And this girl fought. And she fought for 10 years. And I'm convinced it was because every single day she woke up and she tapped into joy and kindness and shared it with every person that she could. And that is why I'm convinced that she lived with glioblastoma for 10 years. But she would always remind me, and it's what I really want to leave the listener with today, is be the change that you wish to see in the world. not for anybody else, but for you. How can you be that change that you want to see?
Leah, I love that. What an amazing, amazing episode. I can't believe we already went an hour and 11 minutes. It feels like 2 minutes. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? Where can they find all your upcoming things, your podcast, which is dope? Where can they find everything that is Leah Drew? And of course, we'll put it in the show notes too, but wanted to hear it right from your mouth first.
Yes, totally. My podcast is called the Mindful Evolution Podcast. There is likely going to be a rebrand coming. So for now, check out the Mindful Evolution Podcast. You can always find everything that I do on social media. Find me on Instagram at mindbodywithleah and my website, leahdrew.com. And yeah, if you are like, if you're listening to this and you're a woman and you're like, I am ready to dive into like healing these feminine wounds and creating change in the world around me and step into your confidence and honor your voice and like step into that sexy feminine power, reach out. I'd love to chat with you. I'd love to connect with you. And I always have some beautiful ways to bring you into my world, into my communities. My biggest intention in everything that I do and create is to lead with authenticity, vulnerability, and intimacy, and use those to create like big impact and help you go deeper and receive more. And I'm like, girl, I just want you to have the most incredible life that you can. So like, and you know what? Through helping women, I get to help men too. Actually, this week I had so many men reach out to me and many men be like, what you're sharing is literally helping me understand women more. And I'm like, yes, that's what we want.
You hear that, men? Make sure to check out Leah, because trust me, you know, she's putting out some real gems, you know, and your content helps me a lot too. You know, like I don't pretend to understand women for a second. That's what I love most about women, is that there is no understanding them. You know, whether or not you can understand men, I think we're simpler creatures at heart. You know, like we have a lot more inside of us, of course, but like, you know, I think men are just typically easier to understand than women. And I think for me personally, that's my favorite part about women. It's my favorite part about Rachel. It's my favorite part about all my female friends, is that there's just a limitless well of just infinite potential, infinite amazingness, infinite abundance, infinite mystery within them. And dive into that shit. It's fucking awesome.
Let's fucking go.
Yes. And I got one last question for you, Leah, that I asked you on the first one, but since it's been a while, I'm going to ask you it again. Usually I'll modulate it if I've asked it before, but I think it's been long enough that I can just dive in with this one again. So let's say someone listens to this episode and they're really excited to check out psychedelic medicines in their own life. What is the one piece of advice you would offer them to allow them to use the proper discernment in choosing whether or not psychedelics are right for them at this moment in their lives?
What comes to me is there's a difference between opting into psychedelics with curiosity and forcing yourself into psychedelics to solve your problems. Psychedelics are never going to solve your problems. They may show you new things and give you new perspectives. And then it's up to you to integrate what it is that you've received and to create the changes in your life that are needed to create, to experience, to have what it is that you're desiring through reaching for that psychedelic. And so my invitation is to just be like discerning when you're feeling called. And I always drop into this with ayahuasca. And I'm always like, am I trying to force myself onto this medicine, or is this medicine choosing me? Is this medicine guiding me back to myself? And so, yeah, like using your discernment to realize like where you're getting curious and where you're reaching for something to solve a problem for you, because the only person that's going to solve your shit is you.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Mic drop. Guys, I hope you loved this episode. Leah is such a dear friend in my life, and as you heard, she's been a big source of the inspiration that's led me to this screen today. And I am super excited for you to all tap into her world. Make sure you check out the show notes. Make sure you give her a follow. Make sure you stay up to date on everything that she's doing. And if you yourself are a woman, or you have a woman that's important in your life, make sure to turn them on to Leah's work. She is absolutely changing the game when it comes to empowerment work for women. And if there's one thing I know about Leah, even though she's done so many amazing things, she's just getting started. So make sure you stay up to date. And if you loved the show, we'd of course appreciate a 5-star review. Helps us get the show out to more and more people, which we are eternally grateful for. And as always, wherever you are in the world, I hope you are having the best day of your entire existence. And as always, may the source be with you. Peace for now.